the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Buckeye fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Buckeyes for the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. It is Friday, August the 20th of the year, 2021. And no matter if you're listening to the audio version of the podcast or if you're watching us on YouTube, I want to thank you for making Locked On Buckeyes a part of your day. On today's episode, we will be joined by Mr. Hugh Helmon from 98 Strong. 98 Strong is a company that is assisting college athletes, D1, D2, and D3, to capitalize on their name, image, and likeness. You and I had a phenomenal conversation talking about what 98 Strong is doing to assist different athletes to capitalize on their name, image, and likeness, and a whole lot more. This company is founded by three former college athletes. Andrew Mavis played water polo, Nick Bunn played water polo, and then Dina Brewer, gymnastics, rugby, and water polo athlete as well. Hugh Helmon, the gentleman that we spoke with, also played water polo at the collegiate level. We talk about that and a whole lot more during our conversation. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at jsteven07. If you want to follow 98 Strong on Twitter or Instagram at 98strong_. Once again, that is at 98strong_. I'm going to back away, bring in Mr. Helmon as him and I talk about 98 Strong and what they're doing to help college athletes capitalize on their name, image, and likeness. And joining us now here on Locked On Buckeyes, it is Hugh Helmon representing 98 Strong, a company helping athletes with NIL and helping them capitalize on their name, image, and likeness. Hugh Helmon, how you doing, man?
Doing well. Thank you for having me on. Excited to talk about everything.
Absolutely. Let's just start right with the basics. What is 98 Strong?
Yeah. So 98 Strong we're a platform helping all student athletes connect with sponsors. So we are of the belief that every single college athlete has value. It's not just the top 2% that are going to go pro and make their millions. There's also 98% of student athletes that will not go pro, and they have, some of these guys have a decade and a half of putting in work to be the best athlete they can be. And now they have a 4, maybe 5-year window where they can monetize themselves and make some money off of all that effort. And we're here to help all of them.
How have you guys been able to help people so far in this short period when NIL has been able and available for everyone?
Yeah, so starting July 1st, it exploded. June, the anticipation was that July 1st, 5 states were going to go live, allowing students to monetize their NIL. It was like Florida, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and Texas. And then on June 30th or 31st, the Supreme Court ruled that all NCAA athletes had to be allowed to do it. And so July 1st, it exploded, and it was like the Wild West. On July 1st, we had 6 kids on our platform, and now we have, I think, over 750 kids signed up on our platform, and we're able to, we're working to get them all deals. And the way we do that is, we take all athletes. Doesn't matter what sport you play, what school you go to, it doesn't matter. We want to help everybody. So we group these athletes together and present them to sponsors, whether they're groups of 15, 50, 100, 500. We group the athletes together because, our belief is, we're the 98%, and the 98% is stronger together. The market value for these student athletes is a lot stronger than the market value for an athlete with 20, 50, 100,000 followers, because their engagement rates are so much better. They have a close connection with their followers. So we're able to really provide these companies and these athletes with awesome opportunities.
You mentioned that on July 1st, well, June 30th, the Supreme Court ruling. Ohio is actually one of those states that came at the very end. The governor had basically rushed, expedited the process to get NIL into place prior. So it wasn't the federal thing, it was a state thing. Then Ohio State has their own rules. But with those athletes that you assisted that group with you on July 1st, was there any hesitancy from them, from you, from maybe the parents? Was there any hesitancy at all with those first few individuals?
Definitely. So I was, beginning of July, end of June, we were doing a lot of athlete outreach on Instagram, reaching out to as many athletes as we could. And there was definitely some hesitancy. It was all brand new to everybody. Mm-hmm. It was the Wild West. There's, and we were a company, we're founded by two former college water polo players. I myself was a college water polo player. So we understand these student athletes, and we were able to talk them through what we were about and really, have a connection with these guys, because there are a couple other companies that have popped up that their focus is working with the big time athletes. They're working as agencies more so on, singular representation of athletes. And we're here to represent everybody and help everybody. And so, being former college athletes, we were able to, explain to these students that were hesitant as to what we were doing. And same with the companies as well. Like there were, we're still like, companies are like, we're not sure. And it's like, look, we can break this down for you as simple as it gets. These athletes are valuable because they have a close connection on Twitter or on Instagram with their followers in their community around campus. Everybody sees them and knows that they're hard workers, right? These are college athletes. They're D1, D2, D3 athletes for a reason. They work hard and they deserve to be compensated for that. So yeah, there's definitely some hesitancy with a lot of athletes. And I think that's going away now as we're getting athletes deals. They're seeing that, we've been able to establish a really nice social media presence on Instagram and Twitter. We have a great team that's doing our graphics, and it looks great. And we're able to get these kids deals. And that's the most important part to us.
I got to take a little time out very quickly on the NIL talk. You mentioned you played water polo. I went to the website, and two of the three founders played water polo, like you mentioned. And then three, excuse me, because there's the two men that play water polo. And then Miss Dina Brewer, she played gymnastics, rugby, and water polo.
Yeah.
Can you please explain to everyone, including myself, how hard it is? We just watched it on the Olympics. It looks extremely hard, but from you and what you did in college, how hard is it, man?
It is, especially when it gets to those, that college and international level. It is the hardest. It's hard to explain.
I can tell by look at your face.
It's really hard to explain just how tough it is. I mean, you're taking the physicality of rugby or football. You're adding the endurance of like cross country and marathon running, essentially. And then it's also, you have to have the mental game too, that you would have to have in basketball or soccer. So you're taking the hardest elements from all of these games and putting it into one, and you're in the pool. So you're treading, like you're in 8-foot water at least. So you can't stand or even like push off the bottom a little bit. So it's tough, but I mean, it's a lot of fun. And especially when it gets to those higher levels, it's a whole nother ball game. It gets that much tougher.
Dude, I grew a greater appreciation for people like yourself and for people that play those water style sports, synchronized swimming, all that kind of, I mean, the diving. I mean, I have grown a great appreciation, even greater than what I already have, for people like yourself that have played that sport, because watching it on the Olympics and then hearing somebody on a show talk about how I know it's hard, but when you take it to the fact that they're not standing up, they're waiting in the water the entire time. No matter what position you are, it's hard. And I can't describe how hard it is. I've done things that are hard. I've never done anything like that. And I got to say hats off to you, everyone else that plays water polo, because it's tough. And it looks like you guys have a lot of fun doing it.
Oh, it's the best. It's like I said, you take the toughest aspects from every sport, but you're also taking the most fun. You get to be extremely physical and, borderline violent sometimes. And, it's the mental game. So it's, it's like when you're playing pickup basketball. Mm-hmm. So it's awesome. It's definitely tough, and the training is tough, but it's a one of a kind sport, and it's a ton of fun.
My guess, I'm not the smartest guy in the world. I say it all the time on the show, but my guess is you eat 4,000 calories a day, or you were back then?
Yeah. When you're training, definitely, especially at that college level, when you got 6 a.m. practice for 2 hours, and then you got lift, and then you got another 2-hour practice that night, and you're in the pool all the time and lifting. It's, you got to eat as much food as you can, got to get as much energy as you can as well, because you got to be big in the pool. So
what was your weight? What was your playing weight?
Playing weight, I was probably between 215 and 230.
In the water, bro?
Yeah. So
oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I was a center. So it's and Andrew Mavis as well, who's one of the co-founders. We both played center, and that's it's similar to a center in basketball. You got to be big and bulky so that you can move guys out of the way. And I mean, that's one of the great things about water polo is you watch the Olympics, and these guys may not look like they're in the best shape, but you put them in the pool and they'll outswim just about everybody. Like they could probably keep up with a lot of those Olympic swimmers, and they're got a lot more weight on them, and it's because you got to be big, you got to be able to push people around, grab, and so it's tough to play that position because you got to be able to swim and have that weight on you, which most of those players don't have to, but a center does.
That's a good point. Very good point. Sticking with the sports aspect now, what sports specifically give me 3 sports where the most athletes have come from that 98 Strong has partnered with?
So I would say that's a good question. I would say we've probably got I couldn't say the top 3 necessarily, but I can give like a couple that I think we have the most. And I think we have a lot of water polo players because all 3 of us have a ton of water polo connections. Wrestling, we have a fair number of wrestlers, and baseball, football, basketball as well. We all have, we have pretty good numbers, but realistically, we have athletes from every single sport, over 250 different schools. We have equestrian, water polo, track and field, football, and football at the highest level, lacrosse, hockey, everything. We cover everything, really.
That's good to hear. And I've always been curious about companies like 98 Strong as far as when it comes to these initial beginnings, these new journeys that companies are going on. They may have wanted to go down this road for a while, but they finally can and assist people. You said over 750, I think it was over 250 schools that you were assisting currently right now, being recorded on August 17th. I want to timestamp that on purpose because that could definitely change down the road very quickly. That could go to 300 schools, 310, 315, 1,000 students very, very quickly. So I wanted to timestamp that because that's very good. That's very important. And I think it's a step in the right direction for the company because you guys would have loved to capitalize on your name, image, and likeness when you were athletes. And now you have athletes now that are able to capitalize on theirs. Do you find down the road that there will be somewhat of like a brand ambassador, kind of like the Barstool athlete, where I know these are still like partnering with you, but more like you're an ambassador of us and we're going to assist you with being an ambassador and representing the company as a whole?
Yeah. So I think for us, I'm not entirely sure if that's something that we're going to, that we're going to move into, because that's where things can get a little tricky for some of these college athletes. And we're already seeing it, like Barstool, at the University of Louisville, they're already telling these athletes, you can't work with Barstool because of their association with gambling.
Yeah.
And so, and as well, like there was some initial concerns with what Barstool was doing because these athletes are representing Barstool and getting free gear. And Barstool was using their pictures of them in their jerseys and their uniforms, which most schools are strictly against. We've seen a couple schools that are just like, hey, go get your money, we don't care. But there are other schools that are like, you can't use the school colors, you can't do anything on campus, no logos, anything like that. So I think for us, the most important part is just being a platform for these athletes and making sure their eligibility is safe. We were all college athletes, so we know you don't want to take any risk on losing your eligibility, because if you lose your eligibility, you could lose your scholarship. And so that's our number one thing, is making sure that we comply with the NCAA rules and that we're making sure students are okay with their schools and they're not going to get in any trouble when they do agree to a deal. So it's and what we're doing actually is we're starting an initiative called 98 agents or 98 managers. We're still working out the name, where at every school we hope to have somebody that is a student on campus that is not necessarily a student or not necessarily an athlete, sorry, but they're just a student that wants to work in sports business, and they can be the representative for their school and kind of be the middleman, similar to what Barstool has with their Viceroy program, where they have all their schools have their Twitters and stuff like that. We want to have something similar where we have a student that is the middleman and can make sure the athletes are all good. If they have any questions, that it gets to us in the right channels. That way, we have 750 athletes right now, and we've seen the growth so far, where we went from 6 athletes July 1st to 750 now, and we predict that trajectory is going to keep going. So we want to make sure that we have a way that we can easily communicate with all of our student athletes without anything getting lost.
That's a good thing that you've mentioned the the restrictions that some schools have, because Ohio State has their own restrictions. I don't think the athletes can capitalize off the gambling. I know that there's a deal where athletes can sign a deal with a company that will allow them to use team licensed apparel with their name on it. They can make money off of that. I do like the restrictions that schools have, because these are still young people representing a university, a level of a place of higher learning, and so there's still going to be restrictions there that they can do. And I didn't mean to throw Barstool under the bus. That was just the first name that came to my head when it came to. I know they were big on the Barstool athlete. They're not the only company that's doing that right now. Just the first one that popped into my head there. But you mentioned brand 98 agents, 98 managers. Was that really an initial thing to have people that aren't athletes on campus kind of assist the company, or how did that all come about?
So that came about just because we realized how fast we were growing, and we realized that some of these schools are much bigger athletic schools. Like you take an Ohio State, Texas, Oklahoma, something like that. There's a lot more athletes on campus, and we just wanted to make sure that we could easily communicate with those athletes, and that they had somebody on their campus that they could go to if they had any questions or concerns, and that we had somebody on campus that would, could talk to new athletes and talk to local businesses. So like Andrew and I are both located here in Princeton, New Jersey. So right across the street from Princeton University, we have all of these local businesses. So we can go in there and talk to these businesses and get local deals, but we can't do that at the University of Oklahoma or Ohio State because we're not there. So it's also, the 98 agent, 98 manager will serve multiple purposes. They will be the representative for the athletes, and then they will also, we hope that they'll go out and talk to local businesses, and we can help, them make some money as well in that sense.
What is the immediate kind of short-term goals? So you kind of hit on some of those already, but what are some other immediate or short-term goals, and maybe a 5-year goal for the company as far as how they want to continue to assist, and then broaden out how they assist athletes with their name, image, and likeness?
Yeah, so definitely, like right now, our short-term goals are just continue to get athletes, get our 98 agents kind of off the ground, get that initiative going, and by the end of this first semester, so by Christmas, our plan is to have gotten every single athlete on our platform a deal. So right now we're at 750 athletes, and we are working on some deals that will cover most of those 750 athletes, which is awesome. But we are continuing to grow every single day. We're reaching out to athletes every day. So we want to make sure that, every athlete that's getting signed up is going to get a deal. In terms of the long-term goals, it's a similar thing. We want to continue growing. Our initial plan was within the first 3 years, try and get to 5,000 athletes signed up. And I think we could surpass that by Christmas at the rate we're going. Because every time our kids get a deal, we then get their teammates are interested and other kids on campus. So that's, and then just, again, continuing to work, get bigger and better deals for these kids. And not just, one of the things I think we really want to focus on is not just one-off deals with companies, but find a way that these athletes can have an affiliation with a company for a longer period of time. So whether that's throughout their year or throughout their semester, we want to see these athletes have a I don't want to say a steady income, but we want to make sure that they can, every month they're making, a X amount of money so that they can, make sure they're buying meals and they're, because a lot of there are a lot of athletes out there that are, they're not scholarship athletes. So they're working a job as well so that they have money to pay for food and stuff. And we just want to make sure that every athlete is making, a little bit more money than they would otherwise. And yeah, that's the main goal, is just keeping them all, happy. Obviously keeping everybody NCAA eligible. That's our number one priority is we understand the importance of that. We don't want to mess around with that. We luckily have a great team of lawyers that are making sure everything we're doing is NCAA compliant and compliant with the schools. So yeah, that's just the goal, is to keep growing, keep helping athletes, and really, this is a market that's going to explode. The estimation right now is that it's, $250 million market value for these college athletes, and in 3-4 years time, it's going to be, $3 or $4 billion. So we just want to make sure we're there to help all the athletes, especially now with athletes are able to grow their brand so easily. We want to make sure that they can, are doing it right and doing it in a safe way.
You mentioned something about athletes, not all of them being on scholarship. I think they get overlooked and glossed over by so many people, no matter what walk of life, no matter what your occupation is. I think people overlook that part. My brother played FCS level college football, and when he transferred to Butler University in Indianapolis, football was, I think, the only sport or one of the few sports that didn't have scholarships. Now, granted, he got money from other places that the school allowed him to do it, but athletic scholarship was not one of those things. So it's not just the scholarship athlete, Hugh, like you've mentioned, it's also the non-scholarship athlete that 98 Strong can assist.
Yeah, it's everybody. Like I wasn't on athletic scholarship when I played. So I was lucky enough, I was able to get some academic scholarship, but I still had, to pay for, my books and food and housing and stuff like that. So there's the argument prior to NIL being legal that it's like, why are these athletes complaining when they get, a free education? It's like a tiny minority of these athletes are getting a full scholarship. I think it's about 1% of all student athletes are getting a full scholarship. That means there's several 100,000 college athletes that are still having to find ways to make sure that their bills are paid. And, whether that's through student loans or their parents helping them out or working a job, the athletes have bills that they have to pay, whether it's rent for their apartment. There's stuff that they have to pay. And that argument always bothered me when it came to the athletes. It's like, these guys are putting in the hours of a full-time job with school and their sport, but they're not getting any compensation really. Some of them are getting scholarship, but most of them aren't.
This has been fun, Hugh. We could keep going for a very long time. If you could let everybody know where they can connect with 98 Strong on Twitter, 98 Strong, the website, and then anything else you want to list as like contact ways to connect with the company.
Yep. So for the athletes, they can go to 98strong.com and sign up really easily. There's a big button when you first go to the website that says join the 98 Strong. And it's a really simple process. It's completely free for the athletes, non-exclusive. So athletes are still able to get deals with other brands if they want to. We don't want to stop them from any opportunity they can get. So absolutely non-exclusive, really simple sign-up process: name, email, school, Instagram handle, graduation year, how many followers you have, and what sport you play. It's a really simple process. We're trying to keep it as simple as possible because we understand that these athletes, they don't have all the time in the world. So we want to make sure we can keep it simple for them. And then you can find us on Twitter and Instagram, and that's at 98strong_. And we're, if you have any questions, you can DM us, and obviously any local businesses as well. We're always looking to work with people to help these athletes out.
Hugh Helmon from 98 Strong. This has been very informative, very fun as well. So actually talking about the water polo, all the calories you guys are eating and things like that. Thank you so much for coming on Locked On Buckeyes and informing us about how 98 Strong can help athletes capitalize on their name, image, and likeness. I really appreciated it, man.
Thank you for having me on. It was a great time.
And that's all she wrote, guys. Fun week of shows. Once again, I want to thank Mr. Hugh Helmon for coming on and talking about 98 Strong and all the goodness in every way they are assisting college athletes right now. If you want to follow 98 Strong on the Twitter or Instagram at 98strong_. If you want to follow me on Twitter at jstevens07, email me, jstevens317@gmail.com. DMs are open on both IG and the Twitter at jstevens07 on both of them. Text me 850-462-5442 so we continue this conversation about Buckeye football all week long. High school football in Ohio has started. High school football in Indiana and in numerous places in the Midwestern portion of the United States of America has started. I encourage every person listening or watching, get out to a high school football game. Support the youngsters in your area. You'll get entertained. They'll have fun doing it. It's a great night for everyone. For Jay Stevens and the Locked On Buckeyes podcast, we're done for the week, shutting things off for the week. Be back Monday morning to talk more Buckeye football. And as always, go Bucks!